Hey guys, welcome back to the Makefile series. Today we are going to cover conditionals. So these are if statements. Typically you need if statements either for error checking or for flow control if you want to do one thing under one condition or something under another condition. So one example that I put over here is whether you're building something for debug or for release. For example, in a C or C++ project, if you're building with debug, you might want a certain set of flags. You might want to disable optimization, whereas for release, you would want to optimize. You would want to remove all debugging information. So in general, we have two types of if statements. We have the if equals to check equality, and we have ifndef to check if something is defined. If equals takes two parameters, a and b, and it checks to see if they are the same. Ifndef takes one parameter and it checks to see if that is defined. We also have the inversion, so if not equals and if not defined. These are statements. We also have conditional functions, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the example I put here is ifndef config, and I actually erased a line before the video where we set config equals to debug. If I run this makefile as is, I'm in the wrong directory. If I run this as is, I'm going to get an error. It says config is not defined. So we're not going to continue with the makefile at all. And that kind of implies that I have to set config through the command line. Now, I could just put it in this file, but if you have a complicated makefile system where you have multiple makefiles written in different locations, you might want to put these safeguards to make sure that people are calling your makefiles correctly. So that's what ifndef is typically used for. And we also have if equals that you can use to check if a variable equals a value. So here we're checking to see if config is debug. And note that for ifndef, we're not dereferencing the variable. We're just typing in the variable name. But for if equals, you have to dereference the variable to say that, yeah, this is a variable and this side is an actual string that you're comparing it with. You can put spaces before. I don't think you can put spaces after. Let's give that a shot. Config is neither debug nor release. It is debug. Yeah, so spaces after don't work, but spaces before are ignored. So this is the syntax for if equals. You have to put an endif at the end. If you'd like an else if, this is the syntax for that. And if you would like an else to catch all other cases, that is the syntax. You can also have conditional statements inside of a recipe. If you can avoid it, please avoid it because I feel like it's a little confusing. But if you're in a pinch, go ahead. Moving on, we have conditional functions. So these are different than the statements from above. We have these functions if. There are also and or and int comp functions, but I'll just focus on if for now. If you understand this, you can read the documentation, and the other two or the other three will make sense as well. What we're doing is we're setting these values into a variable, and then we're going to print that variable in this target over here, in this recipe over here. The syntax for if takes 2 or 3 parameters. The first parameter is going to be the string that you're testing. So this string should be either empty or non-empty. If it's not empty, then the if function is going to return the true result, which is the second parameter. If it is empty, it's going to return the third result if the third parameter exists. So here in the first example, we have something here. We have, a bunch of characters. So we're going to print out the true result, and we can see that down here. For the other two, we don't have anything there, so it's going to give us the false result. And here is the false result that we're printing out. Or if you'd like, you don't even need to supply the third parameter, in which case it's going to print nothing. That's all for conditional functions. I do encourage you to look at these if you're interested, but realistically, the if statements, if equals and ifndef, those are what you're going to need the majority of the time. Thank you for watching and hope to see you next time.